Good afternoon. I am Nero Paderes, the Deputy Director for Research and Development and the Officer in charge of the Intellectual Property Management Office of the Abra State Institute of Sciences and Technology. So this afternoon, we were invited by the Dean of the Graduate Study, Dr. Joey De La Cruz, to talk about the different ethical codes and policies for research. So the ethical codes and policies will act as a guide for every researchers in conducting their research. Let us first define what is research ethics. Based from the Webster and Oxford Dictionary, ethics are the set of rules that govern our expectation of our own and others' behavior, or this serves as the standard norm that is expected from individual to behave in society. Also, research ethics is defined as the set of ethical guidelines that will guide us on how scientific research should be conducted and how scientific research should be disseminated to the public. Also, research ethics govern the standards of conduct for scientific researchers. It is the guideline for responsibly conducting the research, whether it is acceptable by society, is it humanely done, or does it negatively affect the respondents or participants of the research. Now, to determine whether it is acceptable or not, or the research follows the ethical rules or guidelines, we have a certain regulating body, or this is what we call as the ethics committee. The Research Ethics Committee or Institutional Review Board or IRB is usually present among research institutions such as state universities and colleges, and even other government agencies have their own Research Ethics Committee such as the DOST and even the Commission on Higher Education. Now, the main purpose of this committee is to review researches as well as proposals, whether it passed the ethical standards. Sometimes it is also their basis to give funding for that particular research to push through. If the research does not pass the ethical committee, then the research proposal will be returned back to the proponent or to the author until the author will be able to comply with the ethical guidelines that is given by the committee. Okay, so that's why the research ethics committee is a very important part in research in order to monitor the full application or implementation of research ethics in every institution. There are three main objectives of research ethics. The first and comprehensive objective is to guard or protect human participants, their dignity, rights, and welfare against exploitation and abuse from scrupulous researchers whose main objective is to gather data to the extent of sacrificing the dignity, rights, and welfare of their participants. The second objective is to make sure that research is directed in a manner that assists welfares of persons, groups, or civilization as a whole. We should remember that the main purpose of research is to discover new knowledge that will uplift the conditions of society by enhancing food sustainability, health, and environmental preservation. Now, in the case of ASIS, the products of our research is returned back to the community in the form of extension services. Research results such as enhancement in agricultural practices, information technology, education, science, and engineering are extended to the community through trainings and seminars. Now, the third objective is to inspect particular research events and schemes for their ethical reliability, considering issues such as controlling risk, protection of privacy, and the progression of informed consent. Now, there are certain research organizations that are considered as predatory in nature. Now, these predatory research organizations take advantage of new researchers by promising them publication of their articles. Once they get the article, they will exploit its contents, leading now to the risk in privacy of both researcher and participants. The main goal of this predatory organization is for financial or monetary purpose only. Okay, they do not care about ethical standards. The next topic is on the code or principles of research ethics. Now, given the importance of ethics in the conduct of research, many professional associations, government agencies, and universities have come up with the following codes and policies for research. We have integrity, competence, non-maleficence, beneficence, justice, dignity, responsibility, honesty, autonomy, privacy, and confidentiality as a guide in conducting research activities or research works. The first code or principles of research ethics is honesty. A researcher is expected to be honest with the beneficiaries and respondents of their research work by telling them the reality on what is the main purpose or objective of the research and the possible outcome that is expected. Aside from that, researchers should be honest about the findings and methodology of their research work. They should be honest in releasing the result of their research to the extent na kailangan yung findings ay tama at hindi fabricated o mali. Kailangan din na tama yung kanilang methodology na ilalagay at hindi itatago at hindi i-share sa mga ibang researchers. Kasi sa research, kailangan na yung methodology na ginagamit ay kailangan na ma-replicate or ma-duplicate in instances na merong question ang ibang researchers sa findings or result ng data ng isang researcher. So, in order to do this, we should share to other researchers the methods that we have utilized. Pag yung findings ng ibang researcher ay similar dun sa ginawa ng researcher, then masasabi natin na reliable yung result ng kanyang research. The other one with regards to honesty is that the researchers should be honest with other direct and indirect stakeholders. When we say direct stakeholders, these are the main participants of the research activity. The indirect stakeholders are the various people that are within the community that may not either directly participate, but still they have an impact with the research that is being conducted. The second code or principle of research ethics is integrity. Integrity ensures honesty and sincerity in our research works, and at the same time, we fulfill agreements and promises that are made. Also, with integrity, we do not create any false expectations or make false promises to other people. Dito na nabubuo yung tinatawag natin na kredibilidad bilang isang researcher. Kailangan na mapanatili natin ang ating integridad at lahat ng mga bagay na ating ginagawa at sinasabi ay makatotohanan at hindi ito gawa-gawa lamang. So integrity will make a researcher a reliable person, especially a reliable source of information or knowledge. The third code or principles of research ethics is objectivity. Objectivity means avoiding being biased in our experimental design, as well as in our data analysis, data interpretation, peer review, and other aspects of research. We should be objective enough that whatever is the outcome of the research, it should be presented in a way that we tell the truth and we will not manipulate whatever the result that we achieve from our experiment or from our research. That is being objective. Another code or principle of research ethics is informed consent. When we say informed consent, it means that the person knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently gives consent to participate in a research without coercion or without forcing them to do so. Informed consent is related to the autonomous right of the individual to participate in the research. Also, through informed consent, the researcher will explain to the participant the main objective of the research as well as the role of the participant. And at the same time, he may also explain to the participant the possible benefit or harm that might be encountered by the participant during the conduct of the research. Another code or principle of research ethics is respect for person or respondent. Now, this includes autonomy, which requires that those who are capable of deliberation about their personal goals should be treated with respect for their capacity for self-determination. We should respect whatever their beliefs. We should respect whatever are their opinions. The other one is protection of persons with impaired or diminished autonomy, which requires that those who are dependent or vulnerable be afforded security against harm or abuse. People or person with diminished autonomy are those that are incapable, such as those PWDs, those that are mentally ill, and those who have a sickness that they cannot judge or they cannot decide for themselves. Sometimes those people that are mentally ill are utilized as experimental subjects, which is very unethical because they do not know how to complain or they do not know how to fight back in instances that they are utilized as guinea pigs in research. Principle, we have beneficence. Okay, so when we say beneficence, we should maximize the benefit of the participants. We should tell them or tell the respondents the benefit that they might achieve when they participate in the research that we are conducting. Okay? So usually in ASIS, when we conduct researches, bumabalik yan sa community in the form of extension services. Uh, in our extension services, what we extend are the products of research. So hindi pwede na mag-extend kami ng mga bagay na hindi mga produkto ng researches. Okay? So, research in community welfare, food sustainability, social mobility, and others, yun yung mga bagay na ina-extend namin. So, yan yung tinatawag natin na beneficence or the benefits that the respondent might acquire, including their community from the research that we conduct. Ethical obligation to maximize possible benefits and to minimize possible harm to the respondents. Okay? So we can minimize harm by treating our respondents with confidentiality. Okay? So wag natin ipagsabi kung sino sila. So lalo na pag napakababa yung rating na ibibigay nila sa isang individual or politicians, for example. Okay? So, meron kaming kinakandak palagi yearly citizen satisfaction survey which is funded by the DILG. So, certain municipalities, particularly those municipalities that are recipients of the seal of good local governance, sila yung mga ina-undergo namin ng citizen satisfaction survey wherein we are going to the community and interview the people using random sampling if all of the services that are declared by the LGU are really being provided. So dito lumalabas ngayon yung mga kakulangan ng LGU sa kanilang mga frontline services like health, education, infrastructure, and others. Okay? So, ang nangyayari dito, minsan nagiging negative yung response ng respondent. Okay? Sasabihin niya na si ganito ay corrupt or yung mga project ay hindi totoo na nangyayari, etc. So nagiging negative para dun sa LGU. So minsan tatanungin sa amin ng LGU kung saan or sino yung sumagot ng ganung or nagbigay ng ganung response. Pero through respondent confidentiality, hindi namin binabanggit or hindi namin sinasabi kung saan or sino yung mga nagbigay ng mga negative comments or response sa interview. Okay? So, kailangan natin na i-minimize yung possible harm sa mga respondents. Okay. Next one is non-maleficence or protecting the human subject. Like what I have said in my previous talk kanina, we should do no harm, okay, or minimize harm or risk to the human or to any subject that is considered as a living thing. Okay. Now, for example, when we introduce new form of medications such as vaccines, kailangan na mapag-aralan muna natin mabuti yung long-term effect bago natin ito i-conduct for human trial, okay, na para hindi madengvak siya. So usually it will take years for trial to undergo before they will be subjected for human trials. Okay? Ang nangyayari, ginagamit muna or nagkakaroon muna ng laboratory trial using laboratory animals such as guinea pigs, rats, and other smaller group of animals. When the study is positive, then that's the time that they are going to conduct human trial to observe its effect on the human body. Okay, but always remember that there should be protection sa mga human subjects ng experiment. Okay, there should be an informed consent, and at the same time kailangan din ng full disclosure of what might possible event that may occur during the experiment. Okay. So kung if you are very observant during the conduct of this vaccination program ng government, dun sa batas may nakalagay na walang magiging kasalanan yung person na magi-inject kung may mangyayari. So kung sa akin parang hindi tama yun. Okay. But anyway, as much as possible when we are subjecting humans for experiment, we should minimize the possible harm that might happen, okay, during the conduct of the research experiment. Okay. Also, there should be the ensure privacy, autonomy, and dignity na tinatawag natin sa non-maleficence. All respondents should be treated with confidentiality. Paulit-ulit natin sinasabi. So yan yung tinatawag natin na privacy. Okay? And at the same time, kailangan din natin protektahan yung kanilang dignidad. Lalo na yung mga ethnic minorities. Okay? They have certain customs and traditions that seem unacceptable to certain group of people or individuals, but to them it is acceptable. So kailangan yung dignidad nila maprotektahan. Okay? So next, another principle of research ethics is responsible publication. Okay? So when we say responsible publication, it is bringing out in the open the outcome of your research through proper publication process. Okay? We publish in order to share the result of our study. We publish so that people will know the possible outcome of certain experiments, of certain events. Okay? But before we publish, the first thing that we should do is to protect our intellectual rights o yung intellectual property rights na sinasabi natin. Okay? Before na mag-undergo ka ng publication, kailangan muna na siguraduhin mo na i-file mo na yung copyright as well as intellectual protection ng iyong research article. Okay? Kasi pwedeng yung publishing company ay hindi credible at pwedeng gamitin yung research mo as their own. Okay? So, kailangan muna na bago ka mag-publish, you should undergo a background check dun sa journal or publication company na pagbibigyan or pagsasubmitan mo ng iyong research work. Okay? And always remember, there should be no duplicate publication. So when we say duplicate publication, na-publish na last year, and then ni-revise mo lang ng konti, ipapublish mo ulit the following year. So, bale, yan yung tinatawag natin na duplicate publication. Once it is published, that is already permanent. Okay? Permanent na yan. Lalo na pag online publication. Okay? Unless you are going to remove or request for your article to be removed from circulation. Okay? Directly from the publisher. But it will undergo a lot of process. Mahirap din yun. Okay? So, proceeding to the next principle, we have protecting anonymity. Okay? So, it means keeping the participants anonymous. It involves not revealing the name, case, or any other information about the participants that may reveal his or her identity. So, ito uli yung sinasabi natin na confidentiality. Okay. So, confidentiality means you are going to protect the information, the personal record, and information such as introduction and objective of the research, purpose of the discussion, procedure of the research, etc. Or the whole content as much as possible. Okay? So you can only release your research after it had undergone peer review. Okay, so if it is already reviewed by other researchers, by other experts in the same field, and that's the time that we are going to release the result. But never include the name or address of your respondents. Okay, you will only report the result of your data analysis and including your interpretation, but you are going to withhold any information linking to your respondent. Okay? So yan yung tinatawag natin na confidentiality. Okay. Then another principle of research ethics, we have yung tinatawag natin na non-discrimination. Avoid discrimination on the basis of age, sex, race, ethnicity, or other factors that are violation of human rights and are not related to this study. Okay? So, when we say discrimination, wag natin piliin kung sino yung ating magiging respondents. Porke ba ito ay LGBT, ayaw mo nang gamitin as part of your research or as a respondent. Okay? Porke ba ito ay isang Tingyan or Itnag, ayaw mo na gamitin sila as a member or a participant in your research study. Okay? We should not be subjective or we should not discriminate in research. Then another principle of research ethics is openness. Okay, so when we say openness, we should share the result, data, and other resources. Okay, But remember, like what I have said, before we share the result or data and other resources that we have utilized, we should protect first through registering our work at the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines. So kailangan natin na i-register for copyright or i-register for patent or i-register natin ito as a utility model. Okay? Another meaning of openness is we should accept encouraging comments and constructive feedback, okay? Lalo na during peer review. Sometimes like what I have experienced, may mga peer reviewers na negative yung kanilang comments. So wag tayong makipagtalo or makipag-away sa kanila. Instead, we should take their comments positively, okay? So whatever their suggestions or comments, if you think as a researcher is applicable to your work, then we should accept and make the necessary changes, okay? So wag tayong makipagdebate, lalo na when we are defending our thesis or title and you believe that what is written is true or that is really what you want to be the content of your paper, and then pag may sinabi na hindi maganda yung panel mo, makikipagdebate ka na, that is wrong. Okay? So lahat ng mga comment and suggestion gamitin natin as constructive in nature, okay? At wag maging destructive. So, usually, lalong gumaganda yung result or paper because of their comments and suggestions. But, do not take literally na tanggapin mo lahat naman yung kanilang sinasabi. Only accept those comments or suggestions that you think are applicable to your study. Okay? So, kung magagamit mo at may tutulong sa ikakaganda ng research paper mo, then i-accept mo. Pero kung sa tingin mo naman ay hindi magiging maganda or hindi tama yung suggestion, just think or mag-thank you ka na lang dun sa panel or nag-review. But never na makipag-away ka or makipag-debate. Okay? May mga experiences ako na may during conferences or research conferences that some of the participants will have a debate with the member of the panel or judges. Hindi tama yun. Okay? We should be respectful of other people. I-respect natin yung kanilang opinion and suggestions. Okay? So sabihin na lang natin, noted, thank you, that is the best way. Okay? Instead of fighting back. Okay? So that is on openness. Next principle of research ethics is carefulness and respect for intellectual property. Okay? So when we say intellectual property, be careful about possible error and biases. Okay? So never manipulate the result of your data. Never manipulate your tables. Never manipulate the variables, etc. Okay? Manipulate in the sense that yung ma-manipulate mo yung variable para lamang yung result ay tumugma doon sa objective mo. Okay? So, dapat whatever the outcome of the research, yun yung gamitin mo at yun yung i-report mo. And also, give credit to the intellectual property of others, especially if the thought o yung wordings ay kinuha mo lamang sa ibang author. Kailangan na cite mo sila. When you say cite, you are going to acknowledge the work of other researchers. Okay? Tinuro naman siguro sa inyo in your research subject on how to properly cite the words, sentences, or paragraph that are derived from the work of other researchers. Okay? But when you are going to utilize the wordings o yung statement ng ibang researcher, hindi tama yung en toto na pangongopya o yung tinatawag natin na copy-paste. Okay? Yun yung tinatawag, tapos lalagay mo yung pangalan ng researcher, tsaka yung year of publication. Hindi tama yon. Hindi tama in the sense na kailangan na i-paraphrase mo muna. Hindi kasi accepted yung word by word na kukunin mo dun sa paper ng iba, and then ilalagay mo lamang yung pangalan at isa-cite mo. Yan yung tinatawag natin na indirect plagiarism. Okay? So, indirect plagiarism is not knowingly na mali pala yung ginawa mo. Okay? Siguro sasabihin mo na, sinite ko naman yung pangalan. Tama, sinite mo nga, but word by word na kinopya mo naman yung kanyang statement. Okay? At nilagay mo sa paper mo. So, the proper way is for you to paraphrase or rephrase the statement and then cite the author or source of that information. Okay? Never na gagamit kayo ng mga words or sentences derived from the work of other authors and then you do not cite them. Instead, sasabihin mo na pag-aari mo. Kasi may mga iba na pinaparaphrase nga nila yung statement, but they do not anymore give credit to the original owner. Yan yung direct plagiarism or intentional plagiarism na tinatawag natin. Okay? So for example, meron akong article na ginawa, and then kinopya mo in toto, or kinopya mo tapos nagparaphrasing ka lang, pinalitan mo or binalik-baliktad mo, then ginamit mo as your own statement, and hindi mo ako binigyan ng due credit, then that is what we call as intentional plagiarism. Okay? So, in the succeeding discussions, meron tayong specific topic with regards sa plagiarism na madidiscuss. Okay? Next one, we have another principle, which is justice. So when we say justice, it is the obligation to distribute benefits and burdens fairly, to treat equals equally, and to give reasons for differential treatment based on widely accepted criteria for just ways to distribute benefits and burdens. So anong ibig sabihin ng justice? Okay? So you should treat everyone equally, even in research. How you treat the Ilocanos should be the same on how you treat the Tingyans. How you treat women should be equal on how you treat LGBTs. Okay? How you treat men should be equal in treating the opposite sex. Yan ang ibig sabihin ng justice. Kung paano yung pag-treat mo sa mga normal individuals, kailangan pareho rin sa pag-treat mo sa mga person with disabilities. Okay? So yan yung tinatawag natin na justice in research. Hindi porke mayaman o mahirap, mayroon ng pagkakaiba, kailangan pare-pareho yan. Lalo na pag tayo ay kumukuha ng mga respondents. Kasi sa pagkuha ng respondents, either gagamit tayo ng random sampling. Sa random sampling natin, dito magkakaroon ng pagkakaiba sa social status. Pwedeng yung makukuha mo na respondents ay mayaman, pwedeng yung makukuha mong respondents ay mahirap, etc. So nagkakaroon ng equality. Okay? Next, let us talk about the advantages of research ethics. Now, research ethics promote the aims of research. It increases trust among the researcher and the respondents. If there is research ethics and we treat each other equally and with respect, there will be the formation of trust among the researchers as well as with the respondents. The respondents will not be afraid to share their experiences or to answer your questions if there is trust. So kailangan sa pagre-research natin or sa pagkakandak ng research, ang unang ginagawa natin is to build trust between the researcher and the respondents. Kasi pag walang trust, mahihirapan yung researcher na mag-call out or magpalabas ng mga verbatim o mga sagot coming from the respondent. So kailangan mo munang i-build yung trust bago mo makuha yung kailangan mong data. At isa pa na mahalaga sa formation ng trust ay magiging mas madali on the part of the researcher. Mas madali in the sense na mas madali mong makuha sa respondents yung mga data na kailangan mo. Other one is it is important to adhere to ethical principles in order to protect the dignity, rights, and welfare of research participants. Okay? Due to ethics, we will be protecting not only the researcher, but also with that of the research participants or respondents. Okay? So when you conduct researches, lalo na pag social research, always take into consideration that any data that you think will violate the dignity as well as the right and welfare of the participant or respondent should be kept in secrecy or in confidentiality. Nakuha mo nga yung kailangan mong data, naging maganda yung outcome ng or result of your research, pero nagkaroon naman ng problema or it had affected the status of your respondents, particularly their rights, dignity, and welfare, hindi na magiging maganda yung ganong uri ng research. Okay? Do not create a research at the expense of other people. Do not sacrifice, particularly the minority groups, kasi nagkakaroon tayo ng instances wherein the minority groups or the ethnic groups are being sacrificed just for research, which is wrong. Okay? Morally. Okay? Mali yun. Now, researchers can be held accountable and answerable for their action because of research ethics. Okay? Now, like what I have said on the start of this talk, research ethics serves as a guide for us. When we say guide, it will tell us what is acceptable and not acceptable in our actions. Pag ang research mo ay nakasira ng isang individual, komunidad o kalikasan, magiging accountable yung researcher dyan. Kung yung research mo ay naging sanhi ng pagkamatay ng ilang individual dahil hindi mo sinunod ang tamang research ethics protocol, then kailangan mo itong sagutin sa batas. Okay? Another advantage of research ethics is ethics promote social and moral values. Because it is a guide, it serves as a guideline for us to follow, then nagkakaroon tayo ng magandang social and moral values. Another advantages of research ethics is that it promotes the ambitions of research such as understanding, veracity, and dodging of errors. When we say understanding, we would be able to understand certain phenomena that is occurring in our environment. Veracity means the truthfulness or reliability of information, and dodging of error or the avoidance of errors through proper manipulation or proper computation of data. Based from a computed data, we would be able to acquire informations that are reliable. Then another advantage of research ethics is that ethical standards uphold the values that are vital to cooperative work, such as belief, answerability, mutual respect, and impartiality, which was already discussed in my previous discussions a while ago. Other ones is that ethical norms in research also aid to construct public upkeep for research. People are more likely to trust a research project if they can trust and worth and reliability of the research. If the people would be able to see the outcome of a research project, then more people will appreciate research. Okay? Hindi gaya nung may isang politicians in the Senate or may isang politician in the Senate, I should mean, na tinatanong, research kayo ng research. Wala naman akong nakakita dahil hindi nga niya nakikita. Okay? She is not aware of the true global impact of researches. Okay? Not only for food sustainability, but also for the improvement of society. Okay? So those are some of the advantages of research. The next topic that I am going to discuss is on the limitations of research ethics. There are instances that ethical norms or standards are not followed in research. This is because of certain events such as the COVID-19 pandemic, wherein there is a need for us to utilize experimental drugs that are not yet fully tested or have not yet undergone full evaluation and observation on its possible long-term effect. But because of the ongoing pandemic, there is a need for us to utilize these experimental drugs for the protection of humanity against this virus. So this particular unethical procedure in research becomes acceptable. Okay, if the research or even if the research is unethical, if it will benefit the majority of society, okay, that will become acceptable. Okay. So kahit sabihin natin na morally hindi tama yan or it is unethical kasi you are sacrificing the people by subjecting in their body experimental drugs such as vaccines that are not yet fully tested. So marami ang magsasabi na unethical yan. Tama sila, unethical nga. Okay? Even myself says or consider it as very unethical or particular in the field of research. But we need the vaccine to protect ourselves. So kailangan natin na i-accept yung realidad that there are instances that certain actions become acceptable. Okay? But case-to-case basis lang dapat. Okay? So kung talagang kailangan na gawin, although sabihin na natin unethical, kailangan muna natin ito na i-accept. Okay? So those are some of the limitations ng ating research ethics. Okay? Another one, psychological risk. For example, a questionnaire may perhaps signify a risk if it fears traumatic events or happenings that are especially traumatic. So sometimes may mga questionnaires tayo na pwedeng gumising sa nakaraan ng isang individual na naka-experience ng mga traumatic circumstances sa kanilang buhay. At yung katanungan na embedded sa questionnaire mo ay pwedeng magpalabas or magpa-recall dun sa individual. Okay? So, kasi most of the time, when we are conducting interviews, particularly health-related researches, and we do not know the psychological as well as the background of the respondent, there might be some instances na yung questionnaire natin will trigger a certain psychological response na hindi maganda dun sa part of the respondents. Okay? Another limitation of research ethics is on social, legal, and economic risk. For example, if personal information collected during a study is unintentionally released, participants might face a threat of judgment and stigmatization. That's why we should be careful prior to the release of our research result. Okay? Another one is that certain tribal or inhabitant groups may possibly suffer from discrimination or stigmatization. Burdens because of research. Typically, if associates of those groups are recognized as having a greater than usual risk of devouring a specific disease. For example, a certain minority group has been observed that they are easily or they can easily acquire and transmit certain type of disease, and you accidentally release that particular result to the public, then that particular ethnic minority group will experience stigmatization. So when we say stigmatization, nagiging negatibo ang paningin or pananaw ng karamihan or ibang tao sa kanila they will be branded as a disease-carrying group of individuals. Okay? Now that we are through discussing the limitation of ethics, let us proceed on how we can ensure ethics at different steps of research. Now, the following processes helps to ensure ethics at different steps of research. The first one is that we should collect the facts and talk over intellectual belongings openly with other co-researchers or other people that are involved in our research activity. Another one, we should outline the ethical matters before we conduct our research activities. We should detect the affected parties or stakeholders. If the research activity is very sensitive that it might affect a group of individuals, then we should rethink or review our research process before we conduct our study. Then we should also ascertain the forfeits or the negative impact that might occur during the conduct of the research. Other one is that we should recognize the responsibilities of the researcher as well as the participants with regards to principles, rights, and justice. Also, we should contemplate our personality and truthfulness. Are we ready to conduct this research? Are we going to be truthful in uh, giving or releasing our data? And next, we should deliberate innovatively about possible actions. If there are instances that there are problems that might arise during the conduct of our research, we should be ready for the possible remedy, okay, to correct those actions that might occur. Yan yung tinatawag natin na pagiging innovative. Okay? And then respect privacy and confidentiality always. Then resolve on the appropriate ethical action and be willing to deal with divergent point of view o kailangan tayong maging open sa iba't ibang pananaw, idea ng mga tao, particularly yung ating mga respondents. Okay? Next. So that ends our discussion on the ethical codes and policies for research, and hopefully you were able to learn some new things in relation to the application of ethics in research. Okay? So sana gising pa kayo at nakikinig. Medyo mahaba-haba pa ang ating talakayan ngayong hapon na to. Pero ang susunod siguro ay makukuha ko ulit ang inyong atensyon dahil very informative as well as very useful yung next topic na aking i-share sa inyo. So yung next topic natin ay tungkol sa mga iba't ibang software na ginagamit sa research, particularly sa pagsusulat. So isa sa mga pinakamahirap na part ng research ay yung pagsulat mismo ng paper. Okay? Madali lamang yung pag-conduct, pag-process, pero pag nagsulat ka na at hindi ka isang magaling na writer, then mahirapan ka. So dito pumapasok ngayon yung mga softwares na available sa internet. So usually, meron tayong ginagamit na mga software na tumutulong sa ating research writing process. Okay? So sa amin, ang common na software na ginagamit namin ay yung Quailbot, Grammarly, and Turnitin. We use Quailbot for paraphrasing, and then Grammarly for spelling and grammar checking, and then for plagiarism, we utilize the Turnitin software. So, pag meron ka nitong tatlo na software na to, malaking tulong sa pagsusulat. Okay? To make and improve your research, we advise you to utilize these three software. There are freeware version ng Quailbot, Grammarly, and Turnitin. Pag sinabi nating freeware version, you can utilize them even without paying or buying this software. Okay? Although ang limitation lamang niya ay hindi mo ma-iraran as a whole yung paper mo. So probably by paragraph or by page ang pwede mong i-run. Unlike pag meron kang licensed software Pwedeng the whole paper i-upload mo, and then mapaparaphrase, spelling or grammarly check na to, at mapaplagiarism check na rin yan. Pero kung kasi pag bibili ka ng ganitong software, napakalaking halaga. So usually umaabot yan ng hundreds of thousand. Okay? So yung Turnitin na lamang, aabot na yan pag yung license corporate version, aabot na yan ng halos kulang-kulang na 1 million, around 900,000, yung ganon. Okay? So, paano ba natin ginagamit yung mga software na to? Unahin natin yung Quailbot. Okay, for example, gagamit ako, or I will get a certain portion of a statement coming from a researcher. Yung example natin dito ay yung research work ko na na-publish sa Systematic Reviews in Pharmacy. So, halimbawa, gagamitin ninyo yung statement ko dun sa abstract. You can copy that statement and then pumunta kayo dun sa Quailbot software, which is online. I-paste ninyo yung statement dun sa left side. So, dun sa left side na ito yung kinuha natin dun sa research paper. So, angiogenesis is the formation of new blood vessels and is required in tumor growth, metastasis, and cancer progression. Philippine traditional medicine preparations have shown a comprehensive and function-regulating characteristics. Oregano is an annual succulent herb which is distributed throughout the world. So, ito yung buong statement na kinuha mo dun sa research paper. Okay? So, kailangan, kasi hindi pwedeng na in toto na copy-paste ka na lamang. Kung ano yung nakita mo dun sa research paper ng ibang researcher, yun na yung kokopyahin mo at ilalagay dun sa paper mo. Bawal yan. So, that is an act of plagiarism. So, para hindi tayo ma-plagiarize, ang gagawin natin, gagamitan natin siya ng paraphraser. At ito yung Quillbot na tinatawag natin. Yung Quillbot, may online version siya at meron ding word version. Sa online version ng Quillbot, ang gagamitin ay i-open mo lamang yung kanilang website, yung https quillbot.com, and then magpapakita yung kanilang software. So, kakopy mo and then ipipaste mo and place it on the left side, and then i-click mo yung rephrase. Then afterwards, magre-rephrase siya, and then mapapalitan yung statement. May i-reword siya. So you can now utilize yung paraphrase na statement and place it in your paper. But don't forget to cite. Okay? So gaya ng sinabi natin, cite, cite, cite always. So pag na-paraphrase mo na, either ganito, unahin mo yung apelyido, like yung number 1 natin, according to Paderes 2020, and then ito na yung na-paraphrase na statement. Angiogenesis, or the creation of new blood vessels, is necessary for tumor growth, metastasis, and cancer progression. Okay? O kaya naman pwede rin na i-cite mo using this particular method. Similar results were obtained by Paderes 2020. Okay? That traditional medicine formulation from the Philippines have proved to have a wide range of health-promoting and function-regulating properties. Or, the other way around, dun sa last part ng statement, isa-cite yung apelyido and date of publication nung research na yan. Okay? So, always remember, once that you have paraphrased the statement, always cite the author kung saan mo kinuha yung statement na yan. Okay? There are many ways how you cite the author. Meron tayong tinatawag na PubMed style, web style, AMA or American Medical Association style. We have also your Vancouver ICMJA style. We have the Harvard style. And then we have the Turabian style, the Chicago style, and the MLA or the Modern Language Association style. And then yung last one ay yung common na ginagamit natin, yung APA or APA or the American Psychological Association style, which is the common way of citing in our references. Okay? So yan yung paggamit natin ng Killbot. Another one naman, another software na ginagamit namin ay yung Grammarly. So meron din siyang freeware version sa grammarly.com. So you are just going to paste the entire paper, or you are going to paste a certain portion or paragraph, and then it will determine kung ano yung mga grammatical errors such as wrong spelling, change of adjective, add a comma, change the wording. So yung may mga underline dyan, yan yung mga word na kailangan palitan. Okay? So meron din tayong dun sa right side, makikita nyo na ang overall score is 45. So it means na mababa yung kanyang Grammarly score. So usually sa Grammarly, kailangan around 90 and above ang overall score ng paper mo, meaning pasado siya with regards sa grammar. Okay? Then another software na ginagamit namin is the Turnitin. Dito natin na-determine yung extent of plagiarism. Okay? So, here is an example kung saan makikita nyo na 3% lamang yung kanyang plagiarism score. Okay? 3% is very low. Masyado mababa na yan. So, ibig sabihin, original yung kanyang work o yung kanyang research paper. Hindi niya kinopy-paste. Although, dun sa early version ng paper na to, may mga medyo mataas pa noon ang plagiarism rate niya, but because of this software, na-determine yung mga sentences or paragraph na may mga plagiarized words or text, kung saan kailangan itong i-paraphrase. So until, for example, dito, siguro yung original na first run ng grammar ng Turnitin nito is around 80, ang 80% plagiarism. But because of using this software, we were able to determine kung saang part yung kailangan na i-paraphrase until to the extent na napababa yung plagiarism score nito up to 3% only. So sobrang baba na compared to yung nauna na 80 plus. Okay? So usually sa research, ang acceptable score for plagiarism is 15% pababa. Okay, 15% below ang acceptable threshold ng plagiarism. Okay? So it will depend on the organization or research conference, kasi may mga ibang conference that yung kanilang threshold ay 20%. Okay? But usually, as a standard in ASIS, sa amin, ang ginagamit namin is 15% and 15% below. Okay? So, more than 15%, hindi namin na-accept yung paper. So, kailangan na i-revise mo yan. Okay? So, yan yung Turnitin na tinatawag natin. So, here are the different references that were utilized in the different slides that I have presented this afternoon. So thank you very much once again for listening, and thank you for participating in this activity of the ASIS Graduate School. Congratulations to our Dean, Dr. Joey De La Cruz, and also congratulations to everyone. And hopefully you would be able to produce researches that are credible and original, and that those researchers have followed the proper ethical guidelines or policies. So thank you very much. A pleasant good day to everyone.